This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. Well, an internet inevitability happened this week in that Omegle, the anonymous video chatting service, shut down. Now, why was it an inevitability? For all the reasons that I said that Snapchat was a problem right from its launch, Omegle was a problem right from its launch. So if you've never used it or don't know anything about it, essentially you could go to the site without creating an account, without giving a name. All you had to do was maybe put in some interests and hit go. Your webcam comes on, it matches you up with a stranger. All you see is you and stranger. There's chat on the side, video on the other. You and the stranger stacked. Go. You can hit a button and go to the next person. You know, end the chat and go to somebody else. But there's no names. And because it's live video, it's very difficult to monitor. And when you have anonymity and a difficulty in monitoring and moderating, you end up with problems. The most obvious being there's video and anonymity, and so nudity was often involved. And because there's no sign-up process, anybody can use it. So obviously you can see the direction that that's going to go. You're going to get matched up with people who are too young to be using the service, but because you don't have to give any information, are they? The service became really popular with teenagers and preteens. So having any sort of nudity on the platform, clearly a problem. And then the platform is used literally for grooming. It went the other direction, and lots of terrible things came out of that. Obviously, lawsuits were filed. One lawsuit in particular claimed that the company matched up an 11-year-old with a registered sexual predator, and the company settled that suit, and as part of the settlement comes the shutdown. Now, that was not disclosed during the seemingly abrupt shutdown this week, where the original founder posted and said, you know, sometimes you win. I think it was sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, or something like that. I would imagine there was a lot of learning that came out of this, because the shutdown was part of the settlement of that lawsuit. So the site is gone, which is generally a good thing. There are other similar platforms. I don't know if Chat Roulette is still around, but in the wake of the shutdown, other services have started up overnight to fill the gap. And without the resources of a company the size that Omegle grew to, the chances of having any moderation, because Omegle tried. They tried over the years to try and add, some sort of content-aware services. It never worked, but they tried. If you're just like some guy, like the original founder, just putting up a thing and seeing what happens, you don't have the resources to do that, so it's just going to start over again.
Okay, so I don't understand how this managed to last for 14 years.
I know. How was this
I
not
honestly,
sued out of existence almost immediately?
I don't know. I don't know how I didn't know about this, but it sounds like a terrible idea. Like
Mm-hmm.
if somebody asked me whether they should create a website like this, I would immediately tell them no. I mean, because everything that you've described is inevitable is the inevitable consequence
Mm-hmm.
of this.
Of course.
And I mean, there's no way that this is good. Like,
Yeah.
no way. I mean, this made me think of something which is fairly minor in the scheme of things, but uh, you know, I worked at About.com for many years, and
Mm-hmm.
when I first started there, for the first few years, it was before COPA, before the COPA
Mm-hmm.
Act, the COPA law came into place.
That
For those
ages you
of
pretty
you
good.
not Yeah. Oh man. Yes. But I was young then. I was young enough to be into cook. No, I'm just kidding. I was still adult. Um, anyway. Yeah. Well, let's not do the math there. But anyway, so the cope. So so when I started there, and for those who don't know, COPE was the Child Online Protection Act, uh, which imposed a lot of new, well, not new at the time,
Yeah.
um, responsibilities on uh, web web services and websites. So one thing that we had when I started there is so the way that About.com worked, and About.com no longer exists, but existed for many years. Um, was that we had a whole lot of mini sites, hundreds of them, right? And they'd be on different topics of interest. And there'd be one person who was called a guide who was in charge of each mini site. So we'd have, a mini site about, about knitting, and we'd have another one about learning French, and we'd have another one about vacationing in Spain, and we'd have another one about learning HTML, if we had ones in different religions, and we even had one that was just called chat, and it was actually on the tech channel, which was my responsibility, and chat was supposed to be literally about like all the different places that you could go chat online. But anyway,
Okay.
all of our mini sites, whether they were the chat site or not, had a chat room. They all had chat rooms. There was a little link in the top nav that said chat, and you click and you get transported to the chat room. And the chat room was basically like a Java or JavaScript like chat room. There was the room the room was open 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
and any fool could go in there. Could go in there.
Yeah.
And after COPA passed, they're like, we can't have these chat rooms anymore, right? Because we weren't moderating them. It was
Right.
just I mean. Occasionally, the guides who ran the sites would be like, "Hey, I'm having a chat at 3 p.m. Come over here. Come, let's talk." But like generally speaking, I think they were open 24/7, or maybe you could, if you were the guide, you could close it or whatever. But like they were generally open, so you could just go in there and chat. Now, to be fair, very few people ever did just go in there and chat, but the resource was there, right? Now, now, now you have this, which is like 1,000 times worse than that because here you have something where it's deliberately trying to get you to chat with a stranger.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's doing the opposite of what every parent tells their kids. Like like my son is 11 now, right? And we are very protective of what he does online. Like he can, like we don't care as much what game. I mean, I guess we care about what games he plays, but like we don't want him interacting with strangers. Period.
Right.
Like I
Right.
don't care who it is. We don't want him interacting with strangers. So if he's gonna chat with somebody on Minecraft or whatever, like it's got to be someone that we know in real life, right?
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so like we do not allow him to chat with strangers, and we do not allow him to play games that would make
Mm-hmm.
him chat with strangers.
Right.
Like Fortnite, I think is really you're like, oh yeah, you're supposed to play with all these strangers, and most of his friends play Fortnite, and I'm opposed to that,
Mm-hmm.
like because I don't want him talking to strangers.
Right.
Um, So one can only imagine a situation whose only goal is to make you chat with strangers. It's not like you're
Yep.
incidentally having to chat with strangers because you're teaming up with him in Fortnite. Now your goal is to chat with a stranger. Even as an adult, I don't want that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that's safe. By
Yeah.
the way, uh, I don't think that the anonymity is as anonymous as one might think because now, if you weren't showing your face, I guess maybe, but if you show your face, it's fairly easy to use facial recognition to
Yeah.
find someone,
Yeah. To identify you.
right? To identify you. So,
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a.
S-
I mean, I guess if you disguise your face in some way, then maybe not. But
So I'll tell
um,
you the key to it was to use uh, OBS virtual webcam and have preset clips. There was a whole thing to it
preset clips of what? I don't understand. Why
of
would you do
somebody
that?
else
What was it? Oh, if somebody. Oh, so you were going to so that you could do horrible things and not get like
so that
just
you could record the other person.
this is
You do a screen
horrible.
record and you use OBS. You get a couple of kids at a sleepover to do what you want, so that the person on cam will do what they ask, and you've got all the stuff in pre-recorded clips of somebody else. That was the game. That was how
Yeah,
it worked.
this is horrifying.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
this is horrifying.
And
They
Omegle,
should be shut down.
while probably the modern most well-known version of this, chat roulette was around before Omegle, or at least was popular before Omegle,
Who
and
who
and
has so
I am sitting here on a Bing search of articles, 20 best Omegle alternatives to random chat with strangers.
why? Why would you do that? Who wants that? Why do you want that?
I don't know. Now, so there are a couple of interesting things that came out of it on the legitimate side. There's one guy who I was following on YouTube who would show up in a chat, and off camera he would sketch the other person and then show them the sketch. That's kind of cool, right? There's a couple of magicians that would do magic tricks for the other person and then get them to follow them on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Interesting marketing technique. But overall, just like I said, that the theoretical time bombing on Snapchat was inevitably going to lead to problems, and it did. This was obviously the only direction this could have ever gone, was this way.
Yeah. I'm just surprised it took this long. I mean, you know where this would work is if it was run out of some kind of lawless country, right? If it
Sure.
was run out of a country that is beyond, the enforcement of U.S. laws or any child protection laws or anything
Yeah.
like that,
Or any
right?
any
Then,
forms of decency.
right, you know, so theoretically, obviously there's lots of sites and whatever that kind of exist outside of
Sure.
general international law, and someone could run such a site. Uh, if there's no legal constraint on you, I guess. But why? Why would you even want to run a site like that? What's the point? Did they
I
make a lot of money off of this? Was this a good money maker? It just seems like a
I think
waste of
so.
time.
I think it was. But, so I asked the question with Snapchat right up front. I've long been questioning, and I know I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, and I'll tell you, I don't know how to sign into it. Into our own corporate one, I don't know how to use it. I I know we have one. Michelle made one for CES a number of years ago, and I think she's the only one that can sign into it because I don't understand it. Because the only reason I can imagine that you would want disappearing photos is for nefarious reasons, right? It's for inappropriate reasons. And the only reason I can imagine that you want anonymous video chatting is for nefarious reasons. I don't know why else this would exist. You know, they didn't create the Pirate Bay because they wanted to make it easier to legally distribute games and music. Right? That's not why the Pirate Bay exists. It's why the torrent concept exists, but it's not why the Pirate Bay exists. Right? So this isn't the reason why video chatting exists, because here we are using video chatting and streaming technology to do a technology show, right? It's not the reason the technology exists, but it's the reason this version exists. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yep.
Bless you. To whoever was behind you. No, but there was a sneeze in my ear.
Wow, that mic is really good because that's like 25 feet away through a closed door.
Well, yeah, things happen. Sometimes you can hear the dog bark here. It happens. These are good mics. Thanks, Skipper. Anyway, yeah. There's no way. I don't know what the point was. The Snapchat founder tried to explain it one time, and I didn't buy it. The explanation didn't make sense. I've never heard an explanation for this thing. It seems just as weird and creepy as that trend where people would randomly text their phone number neighbor. Nope.
This all sounds terrible. There's a lot of people who have too much time on their hands.
Indeed. And speaking of too much time on your hands, Omegle grew in popularity in 2020. In particular, because people had too much time on their hands.
You know,
and that's when things went really sideways.
I could see that because it was very isolating. It could be very isolating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
I think people were treating the concept as a digital bar or club, right? It was a place where you could interact with people you don't know. The interactions don't necessarily have to have a lasting impact on your life. You could go in, talk to somebody, hey, I don't like you, hit a button and move on. It's like turning around at the club and just moving on, right? And I think people were trying to treat it that way, but then it gained traction, and then the bad stuff got worse. Omegle has always had the bad stuff, but it got worse when the platform got more popular, because if you look at the statistics, the group who felt most isolated was under 16. And they ended up finding this weird solace in Omegle, and then the bad stuff got worse. So, this lawsuit was filed in 2021. It was settled, I think, just a couple of weeks ago. And now the site is gone, but it doesn't mean the problem is gone because, like I said, I literally have pages of Bing results here with more alternatives that are probably going to be less regulated than Omegle was because they don't have the resources that a 14-year-old company who is actually, having success in the market is going to have. So I think I can speak for both of us when I say, don't do it. Nothing good comes of this. Skip it. Do something else. Find Facebook groups or whatever. Yeah, people in common, go talk to them. Don't find Discord servers, whatever. Don't just randomly connect with strangers. It's unsafe and a little creepy. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.